Okay, hey guys, Keon here, and welcome to your weekly DashGL update. This is week 2. Alright, so let's first start out with a correction from last week. I made a statement about NextJs where I thought that everything was bundled into one file and it didn't export individual files into different HTML files. I went back and looked and checked, and apparently that was completely wrong. It does export different files, but it exports them as HTML files. So the reason that threw me off is because when you debug locally, there's no .html extension, but when you export it, there is a .html extension. So I think, the issue here is that if I want my local file extension and my exported file extension to be the same, I probably want to make a folder and then put an index.html file in there so that I've got the same file extension for when I debug versus deployed. Also, the good news is if it does generate the HTML files, that means I can probably downgrade from a CI/CD system into just more generate the HTML and publish it every time I do a commit. So yeah, sometimes you can kind of catch yourself before you do stupid things, but in my case, I generally just say stupid things or do stupid things, realize I'm a complete idiot, and then go back and correct myself, and then I learn that way. So it is what it is. Yeah. Moving on to actual updates this week. Probably not a lot is going to change because I went through a couple of iterations for things. And so mainly over here, if I pull up a character, let's pull up the Burly Guard. I started naming some of the characters by the IDs just to make it simple. So I actually had something to keep track of instead of these just numbers. So if I pull up the Burly Guard, or I just call it the Burly Guard, whatever the guard characters are in the opening cutscene, we can see that the image X that's being requested is 448, and we can't find the image. And looking through the game, I actually went and found the image, and it's under stage 3, so it's not even under the same stage. The developers threw it wherever they want, like normal. And then it's all the way at the bottom here with image X 768, image Y 128. And what I did was I made it so if you click it here, you can go here and paste it, and it'll go ahead and find the image, look it up, and render it for you. It's not applied to the character yet, but we'll get there. Also, copy and paste is kind of janky. That's to get around the whole React parent-child thing. I could use Redux. I'm trying to avoid using Redux for as long as possible because it adds to one more thing that I have to account for, but whatever. Right now the point is to debug textures, and that's what we're doing. So the image X and Y here is going to be correct pretty much 100% of the time. These are 16-bit values are encoded in the archive with a texture, and they're just correct. So we can trust these values because there's no way we can possibly screw it up. For the reference values, this on the other hand we can screw up, and we probably did screw up in this case. I went on the assumption that this was probably going to be the same as Mega Man Legends 1, and I just jumped into it and I used my same formula and I copied and pasted over, and they might have changed things. Like a lot of changes to Mega Man Legends 2, it's mostly the same, but they did find a couple of tweaks where they could improve here and there, and this could be another one of those areas. So 448 is what we're reading, but in binary what that is that's basically 3 ones and then zeros. We're only interested in the ones because basically if we have the ones, we can move them over, shift them over to where we want them to, or we can mask them and just say as X is from here to here, Y is from here to here. mask them, split them apart, and then say, okay, X does this and Y does this. And basically, as long as we have the correct number of ones, we're great. So 768 in binary is 1 1 and followed by a bunch of zeros. And I guess spoiler, 128 is just 1 0, 1 1 and a bunch of zeros. So we have 3 ones on one side and 3 ones on the other side. And so basically if we want to, we can just, mask and shift them as we need. And that might be what we need to do here. Is I kind of assume that they would probably use the same formula as in Mega Man Legend 1 because why fix what's not broken? In this case, they might have changed things because they changed things. I don't know. So in Mega Man Legends 1, basically when you reference a texture, you're referencing a 256 by 256 texture area. And the images can get copied into different parts of that texture. So in this case, we have a half height image that gets copied into the bottom. On the reference side of things, whether it's copied into the top or the bottom really doesn't care at all. They're basically referring to the coordinate of the top left corner, and then everything that's included in that texture is included in that texture. We don't really need to say, hey, the texture is at Y128, because that's not what's happening. It's referencing the top left corner, and then the UV values are 256 by 256. We're not referencing down to 128 and then doing a half size texture UVs. We're using the full 256 by 256 area. So in this case, there's no reason to look for image Y 128, height 128, because that's stupid. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what matches, that's not what we want. But maybe that is the way that they did it. Maybe they want to have the image X and Y here the exact same as they want it here, and then they want you to go back and reference, okay, I know the texture is specifically this texture here. Now once I know that, go back and find this corner here. Maybe that's what they did. I don't know. I'm gonna have to find a couple more data points and look at it, because originally what I did have this week was I had a page and I split, images and texture, or images and palettes into two things, and I sorted them and I made them searchable by stage, and you can kind of click through based on the image X and Y and find what you want. But I found that this image wasn't showing up, even though I searched through all the stages and all the textures in the game, this texture specifically wasn't showing up because I have the wrong image X. So I went back and made it a more debug style of you can go through and click here and find whichever image you want and apply it, and be able to search and do it that way. But maybe isn't the way the game does things. So I guess what I'm saying is I just need to find a few more data points, find out, break these down into binary values and split them into X and Y and see if that pattern holds true for the data points that I find. And then if that works, maybe apply it out, and scale it out and see how that works, if we can get more relevant image searches that way. So yeah, that's about it for this week. It's just frame buffer sucks, texture coordinates sucks. Anything after the PlayStation is just like, hey, use this file name. But the PlayStation is like, hey, use this frame buffer in X and Y for memory that can always get swapped out for other things. Yeah. So anyways, that's it for my pain and suffering for this week. Just more texture stuff. And I guess, yeah, like I said, I'm just going to find more data points, compare them, see what works between the two. And once that's done, I guess I'll make another approach for how to do the textures. And once I do that, I'm probably just going to be lazy and start making a file that maps which IDs are which characters and what texture size should be using, and then just have like a lookup table. So you can search and apply them manually, and then as I apply them manually, I just say which ones go where, and then that way I don't have to do any fancy programming to try and make them work, because I can just manually pin everything to what should work. And luckily it looks like there aren't too many files in the game. Like a lot of these 660 ones don't seem to show up at all. So I need to go back and find out what's the deal with those. But at least for the the ones that end with 20, the character ones, there seems to be a limited number of characters. So even doing it manually shouldn't take too horribly long, even though I am horribly wrong. But that's it for this week. Just a small incremental update after some trial and error. And I guess there's more trial and error in my future. But whatever, it is what it is. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great week. Kion out.